and welcome back to the Tracon stream. I'm here with our role-playing guest of honor, Guy Sclanders, and we're going to be talking about, well, I would imagine role-playing at least, character development, how to be a great GM, and more. But let me start with the question of any professional journalist. Who are you and what are you doing here?
It's a very good question. Well, I run a YouTube channel called How to Be a Great Game Master. And it now has many facets to it. It's how to be a good player, how to be a good storyteller, basically. And I was invited to come out here to share some insight that I've had in terms of really upping the game in terms of just telling a good story. And I think that this kind of convention where, for example, today we've had more of a focus on computer games and game design, tomorrow is cosplay and that sort of thing, you know, and then there's role playing, of course, as well, is one of the things that my channel does is it crosses all of those boundaries. So whether you're telling a story in a computer game or as a novelist or as a role player, you're going to do it in the same way if you want to be successful. So that's I think why they got me over here.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. Now, we Finnish people really like to know what everyone thinks of us as a country, as a people. So how much did you know about Finland before this visit? Had you been here before?
No, I had not been to any European country before. I've been to the UK, but no.
But that's not Europe.
That's what they're trying not to be, right?
Right.
So I hadn't a huge amount of expectation of Finland. I do have quite a lot of viewers on my channel from Finland, more so than from my home country, I might add, which I find interesting. But yeah, I expected some trolls and I expected Vikings.
Did you meet any?
Well, Vikings, there's lots of beards and hair, and if you give them an axe, I would imagine they'd be a Viking. But no, what I encountered was that the Finnish people are very good liars.
Oh,
because I was
so
told the Finnish people do not engage, they don't talk, they don't ask questions, they're very reserved, they're very private. And for I've been here for 2 days, and so far I have encountered nothing but warmth, friendliness, openness, welcoming spirits. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Well, there must be something in the air.
Absolutely, I think there's a gas leak somewhere. You know, and I was warned in the presentation. You know, Finns don't ask questions, and they asked questions. They were participating and shouting and debating, and it was fantastic. So that's what I'm taking away, is that Finland is we're very reserved. Well, we're not really reserved. Anyway, so it's been wonderful.
Okay, I'm going to be confused about that for a little while here, but
right.
Let's go with that. But you've been to various events and conventions around the world in different places.
Yes.
How would you compare what you've seen here? Well, so far, it's not yet much, but you've seen something.
Very well organized. I think that's the very first point. Wonderfully generous in terms of the time that I've been allocated here. You know, other conventions, they fly you in the day of the launch and they fly you out the day afterwards. And I've been given at least 4 days here, which is mind-blowing. It's been absolutely wonderful. And the attention that the organizers have given me is amazing. Joni was the contact that I've had really with the convention, and he was on holiday in Japan, and he took time away from his holiday just to meet with me, just to chat and make sure that I was comfortable. And now I've been here for 2 days, and it's so welcoming. It's so lovely.
So what have you seen besides the convention here, the 2 days? Any highlights?
Yes, absolutely. The Game Museum. I was present for the launch of their new exhibit, which is the history of role-playing in Finland.
In Vapriikki, the Game Museum.
Right,
yes.
right. And I met some of the game designers, and again, the perception that Finns don't like to talk. We chatted until eventually the museum said, all right, we're closing, go away. And it was fantastic to talk to these creators who've been creating these role-playing games here. And then I said to the museum, well, can I come and film this exhibit? Because the exhibit is spectacular. And they said, yeah, sure, absolutely. We'll get the curator, you know, he's not busy. He'll give an interview with you and do all sorts of wonderful things. And apart from that, just wandering around the city and experiencing Tampere, and the food that's here. Oh, the food that's here. You can tell that I like food. And Tampere has not disappointed. So it's been fantastic.
Okay, we're a little bit scared because there's so much construction work right now in town. Will anyone find that?
Yeah, but it's modernization, it's tram building, and they told me, remember there were trees here. It did used to look nice. Now it looks like an industrial site, but that's okay. It's not the people are what is more interesting.
And the trees are coming back, they've promised us.
There we go.
Okay. Let me get my voice for this correctly. And now for something completely different. We are going to look at some pictures next. Now, we asked you to send 3 pictures that pretty much sum up everything you are, everything around you, the whole big story.
Right.
And we're going to see these pictures and talk a little bit about them. Okay. So could we have the first picture, please? Okay, it's a little bit blurry.
Yes, and there's a reason for that.
Okay.
This was taken on an old-fashioned camera. So I don't know if your audience knows what those are. But in the old days, back in, we just finished off the dinosaurs and we were starting to flourish as a species, we actually had physical cameras.
Oh dear.
Yes. That didn't give us a presentation of what we had taken. You just pressed a button and then hoped that the picture was taken. So that's exactly what was happening in that picture. It wasn't a very good picture at the time, but that picture was 1995, somewhere around there. That's me and my school buddies. Role-playing.
Yeah.
And that's where it started for me.
Okay, so you were like, what, 15 or so?
Yeah, give or take, 15, 14, somewhere around there. That picture, we had a friend who had a cottage in someone's back garden because they lived outside of town. And he lived alone. So that was our gaming club. And the little town that I grew up in, everyone would bicycle to school, and then we'd bicycle back home again.
Yeah.
We wouldn't bicycle back home, we would bicycle to the friend's house, and then we would role play until the sun went down, and then we would ride home. And we'd say, no, we did our homework at Glenn's house. We were all fine. We absolutely did our homework. Then, of course, the next morning when the teachers were asking for homework, we'd say, the dog ate us or whatever, right? Because role-playing became more important.
Okay, but you learned something at least.
Yes, absolutely. The range of a trebuchet, which is vital today.
I'm going to process that for a while, but yeah, I'll just take your word for it. That's very important schoolwork. Remember, kids, that's important. But let's. So it all started then, but then we went forward, and then could we see the second picture, please?
Right. Yes. So
nice costumes.
So the story behind that is that I moved from a fairly small city to Johannesburg, which is one of the biggest cities. It's the biggest city in South Africa. Yeah. And that's where South Africa's really its only convention, role-playing convention, would take place. Now that convention had taken place for at that time of the picture, I think that was its 21st anniversary. So it had been running for quite a long time.
And 26 now, I believe.
26, 27, yeah.
Okay,
I've lost track specifically.
So we have a little catching up. This is the 13th Tracon.
Right, yes. Absolutely. And what had happened was we couldn't find a gaming group because all the groups in Johannesburg were full. So all the people in that picture were people like myself who had moved to the city. So we formed a club called the Foreign Legion. Okay. Which was basically, if you are a role player and you've come to Johannesburg, come and play with us, because the locals have got their groups and they're not going to open up and let you in. And the convention there would run it was competitive role playing, and you could enter as a team of role players, and everyone would get their scores for playing or GMing.
And you also took the costumes to it.
Yes, absolutely. You sort of had to embody your group. So that was that one. We went as zombies and other, depending on the theme. And I think that was a superhero theme.
Yeah, I'm getting something like that.
Yeah,
interesting group.
It's a mottled crew. Yes, Cowboy, who was literally a cow. That's the one in the front with the orange cape. He had an attitude, and all of those people I still role play with, even though I'm in Tokyo, Skyping or whatever.
Someone invented the internet.
Absolutely, right. For this reason, actually.
Okay. Well, I gotta fix that in my
that
history.
and emojis, right? I mean, those are the two reasons. Yeah.
Okay. We have one more picture here to show, so let's look at that one.
Oh God. Okay. So you can see the weight has been adding up slowly as I've been doing more role playing. So
are we talking like evolution?
Yes, let's call it. It was an evolution. I'm evolving to my final form, right? We're not sure what that is yet. So that's a picture of myself on the left. Or I don't know. The man and the other man in the picture. Not that I'm being prescriptive, but the other man in the picture is my business partner in the YouTube channel, and is a fantastic supporter. He actually is the reason why the channel exists. And the lady in the picture was she was my boss at the television company that I worked at for 8 years. But she was much more than that. She supported Derek and myself on the YouTube channel. And she really gave us a lot more leeway, I think, than we deserved to try and do different things. And whilst we were at work, if there wasn't anything happening, she didn't mind if we worked a little bit on the channel and that kind of thing. And herself, as well as the MD of the company, they completely supported our channel efforts, which was fantastic. You know, they didn't hold us back, and they didn't ever say, "Oh, you've got to stop." It was. It really was. But it was in the nicest possible way. And you know, when you have someone like myself who will don elf ears, chainmail, and run around a field. Well, okay, let's be honest. I'll walk around a field, threatening to attack people in a LARP, and you dress like that at work to leave for the venue. To have bosses who go, "Yeah, that's pretty cool. You can dress like a wizard or an elf. You're 35. That's okay. We're not judging." They were so supportive. So that picture there is really, that's the core of the channel.
I can actually relate a little bit to that. I've been doing some interesting cosplay at work sometimes too. Yeah, it's wonderful when the boss realizes that, like, if you do things you like, it makes you happy, makes you a better worker too.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so let's all follow our passions, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody else.
Of course, yeah. Naturally. I did a little spying on your social media feeds here, and to get a little bit of ideas. And you have some interest in the human psyche, I would say, at least based on some things you've posted. So, how do you mix real life psychology into creating characters?
Badly.
Okay.
To be honest, so you know, the idea of psychology in humans and role playing or in storytelling. I haven't had any formal training in psychology or anything like that, but I talk to people and I listen to people and I watch how other people tell stories. And whenever I meet someone who has any kind of training in psychology or anything like that, I pick their brains and I try and understand things. And because I've been telling stories my whole life and seeing how other people have reacted to those stories, there are certain fundamentals which, the more I travel the world, the more I realize as humans, that's what we do. Whether we want to or not.
Tell stories.
We have to do it. We can't stop doing it. So, and it really doesn't matter what it's about. And it's part of who we are. So whether you believe that we were created by an all-powerful being, or that we evolved over time and millennia to the human species that we are, we have an inbuilt need to make a story.
As we're doing right now.
As we're doing right now. And so once you realize that is what everyone is going to be doing, and then you start to look at how do they do that, we all do it in the same way. We might just add different components to it, but we all like to have a sense that something caused something to happen, and this is why that sort of happened. So we look for those kind of components. And then you start to realize that, well, actually that's how it works. And that we're all very much the same. And I mean, I've played with people in Japan, I've played with people in New Zealand, I've played with people in the USA, I've now played with people in Finland. We're all human. Mm-hmm. And we want to tell a story. So yeah, that's
a very good summary. You know, we're all human and want to tell a story. That's it. It's a wonderful summary. So we could say that the psychology is not perhaps in creating a character, but in the whole, what we are.
That's it. Absolutely.
Okay. So from these characters, for example, where it often starts, becomes a story. So tell me a little bit about building a story. Putting things together, making it. When does it come to life? When is it a story, and when is it still just, notes?
Right. That's a very good question. I haven't been asked that one yet. So when you look at a character, I think everyone wants to make a character that isn't them, right? They want to try and create something that isn't them, but we can't do that because we don't know what it's like to be not us. I've always only ever been me, so I can't imagine what it would be like to be somebody else. So I can only create what is myself.
What you've experienced,
yes,
what's in
correct.
your head.
So whether that is the opposite of what I am, whether it is an aspect of what I don't like about myself, or it is an aspect that I do like about myself, it's always going to be something about yourself. And I think, when does it become a story? It becomes a story when you can tell me what that character is struggling against and why. Because that's, in essence, what a story is that someone has this difficulty. I have a line that I use on the channel all the time. Someone wants something and is having difficulty getting it. So answering that, you can take a character, you can take anything. If you fill out that sentence, now you have a story.
So basically, it's about the struggle.
It's about the struggle. Because if there is no struggle, then there's no story, generally speaking. So,
but you build a story, you have a lot of ideas going, a lot of elements. You have to choose what to pick, what to drop away. What kind of a process is it? Can you, magic tricks on how to figure out which pieces actually fit into this particular puzzle?
That's a good question. That's a good question as well. Everyone has a different approach to how they construct a character. And whether you start with a picture or you start with concepts like, oh, I want to create a grizzled ranger, right? And then you say, okay, maybe maybe it's a female character. Maybe she dresses in bear furs, but not wolf fur. However you start to flesh it out. Mm-hmm. I always maintain you've got to come back to 8 odd questions. And those questions are the parents still alive? What's the relationship like with the parents? And you go, well, what does that have to do with character? And it tells you a lot about their approach to family. And then you have to ask the question, well, why did they become what it is that they became? So why did she become a ranger? Did she become a ranger because she saw a wounded animal once and she tended for it and she saw that it recovered under her care, so and that motivated her?
What they are, but why are they that?
That's it. So and you apply that to your own life. So you say, okay, well, why are you the way you are? Why am I the way that I am? And if you think long enough, or you drink enough, well, either way, I think you can get to some interesting answers.
Okay.
And my own story, why am I running a YouTube channel telling people how to write stories? When I was 4 or 5, this is my mother's memory, not mine. I was completely
so director's
zoned out.
cut.
Right,
okay.
Right. I used to take paper and draw a picture of whatever it was, and then underneath it, I would use the pen or the Koki pen, the coloring pen, and I would just make scratches on the paper. And then I would take it to my mother and I'd say, did I write anything? Hoping that I had miraculously written out a sentence in English.
Okay.
She would very politely say, well, not exactly, but that kind of looks like the word fox, because she would obviously look at the picture and then try and interpret what the hell I was trying to convey. Yeah. But I would do this because I wanted to just tell these stories. Why did I want to tell those stories? Well, I think it was because I enjoyed seeing other people experience my stories and derive enjoyment out of that.
Okay.
So, that has nothing to do with your question, but answering
We're
questions
here to
as
talk.
to why, right, it helps create characters that are believable. Why do they do that? Now, that's the interesting story. The fact that they do it, that's not so interesting.
That's kind of like the finish line, ignoring the race.
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about storytelling of the future. Now, you've worked with VR, virtual reality,
That's
a little
right.
bit, and you've mentioned that the VR is the future.
Right.
Honestly, I've only gotten nauseous out of it so far,
Yes.
but maybe I'm assuming there's a lot more to be coming that way.
Right. So absolutely. And the reason why I think VR is the way of the future is you can tell so much more in virtual reality than you can in traditional media. And again, those wonderful bosses that I was talking about that were incredibly supportive of Derek and myself on the YouTube channel, they came to us and they said, make a 360 VR movie.
Okay.
We want that. And I thought long and hard about it and said, okay, well, what does VR give us that traditional filmmaking doesn't? And it gives us the opportunity of standing in the scene, potentially, and interacting with the actors. Or if it's non-interactive, it gives us the opportunity of having so much more space to look at.
Or on the other hand, so much more to create if you're making it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So much more story that you could tell. And so we made this short film. It's on the channel. And again, the boss's faith in our craziness was revealed because it was a World War II Nazi interrogation movie.
Dark theme.
Very dark theme. And we said, right, well, what happens if in traditional film you see a little bit happening with the villain and then you see a little bit happening with the hero? What if you could watch them both at the same time? So in the film, on one half of your 360, you can watch the Nazi story. And on the other half, you can watch the rescue story happening until right towards the end where they then come together. And then you see the whole thing playing out.
I'm trying to imagine this all. It sounds rather fascinating.
Right. So what I then, from that, I then said, okay, all right, so that was one way of doing it. And when you analyze, we have a thing called a heat map, which is basically tracks where you as the viewer are looking.
Yes.
To see, are you looking up there, or are you looking down there, or are you looking behind you? And when you watch the heat map, we're only watching the faces of the actors. So either we're watching the Nazis or we're watching the people behind us. So it's very interesting to then see, okay, so that's what humans are interested in. We're not interested in the side thing that's happening. And we tried to make sure that we use that full space.
Of course.
With little other bits and pieces going on. But the humans, the viewers, were only interested in the actual human drama happening on the two sides.
I remember a news bit about this heat map thought as well.
Right,
It's,
absolutely.
It's interesting.
It's fascinating stuff. But putting you in the story is our next step. And you look at something like Star Trek, where they have their holodeck.
Yeah.
Right. It's not VR because it's physically recreating stuff around the characters, but it's very, very immersive. And, you know, I was listening this afternoon to one of the presentations here on computer games, mobile games, and whether VR is moving forward. Yes. Even here in Finland. And I think it's only 9% of the sort of the Finnish film computer game industry or gaming industry. Only 9% is devoted to VR. So it's not big yet.
But you suspect it'll grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really think that as humans, we need more. We advance, we evolve as storytellers. And so we need to be prepared for that.
I would imagine that viewers have to evolve a little bit too for that.
Yes, yes. And I mean, we can talk for days on how we have. If you look at the Méliès films of the 1900s, where it was just a train arriving at a train station, and the viewers were running out of the theatre because they were terrified of this train arriving. And you just watch 100 years of cinema, and you'll see how we suddenly started to make movies faster and faster. The editing was faster, the effects were bigger and grander and greater. I think you would struggle to make a film where the audience physically gets up and runs out of the theatre because they are afraid for their lives nowadays, because we're so used to it.
Okay, so you need new ways to scare the audience, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about working in a team. Now, you mentioned this stories and when it basically comes to life. Now, when you share it with people, I mean, you have a story that
Yes.
you're going to start working on. You have it basically in your head, and you put it on the table, and everyone else now gets the story. They have the story in their head, but they don't have the same story
Yes.
in their head. They have a different vision. How do you bring it together? How do you make it work together?
Well, that for me is the exciting part. Is how do you bring the story together, but not force your singular story onto those other players?
So make many stories and create one story out of them.
Yes,
sort of.
but it's a collective construction, and I think that's I would hope that is what people like about role playing. Is collectively you are discovering this narrative, you're creating the story, And no one person, although the game master is responsible for adjudicating and creating the scenarios, the players, their characters are responsible for creating the story and for leading it in various directions and things. And yes, the game master can bring the story back to where they wanted it to go. But how we experience that story is entirely up to the characters. And I think that's the critical difference between a good game master and a poor one. A poor one is going to want to try and dictate the outcome and force the characters to do something.
So instead of like giving them food, you toss seeds and watch them grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or watch them throw the seeds away and then unpack
Bring
your
in better
story
seeds.
going, well, how does that now affect my story? Okay, that's an interesting development which I couldn't have foreseen. So collaboration, and this actually extends across the board. So even if you look at storytelling within computer games or within writing a novel, an author will write a book, but an editor will still come in and cause that author to have to change things for clarity or for consistency or whatever it might be. So there's always collaboration. We have to accept that. It's how you work with it. And I think if you embrace it, you can get a much better alternative. I mean,
You can become better at what you do as well.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So today we were talking about expectation, and in the audience, again, this was Finn's Not Engaging, we created an entire story about a bunch of naked witches who played soccer in the middle of a Finnish marsh.
I should probably say fascinating.
Right. So, and that was created collectively by all of us. We had no preconceived ideas. We just said, okay, we're talking about a Finnish swamp, and it evolved into this amazing kind of story.
I remember a person studying games once made the concept that he was talking in front of a crew at some event or the other, and just said, okay, what if this was a trial? You're dressed like that. You could be the judges. Okay, you could be the jury. You might be the accuser. You might be the one who's been offended.
Right.
And such. And all of a sudden, everyone looked at it, the whole situation differently.
Absolutely.
It kind of reminds me of what you said.
Right, right.
But let's talk about being a teacher. You've been teaching storytelling for a long time.
Yes.
As someone whose brother is a teacher and hearing all the horror stories, what
Yes.
got you interested in teaching, and how much do you regret it each day?
Oh, no. So well, firstly, I can't teach anyone under 18.
Okay.
And that's just because I don't have enough personal filters to not engage people
Of course.
or swear, which a teacher theoretically shouldn't do. I use it as a tactic to wake the students up because, wait, this person is now using foul language in the classroom. But so I've always worked with sort of university students and things.
All right.
I got into it because I was offered a position when I graduated from my film school. The lecturers came to me and said, right, well, yes, you're working in television, but in South Africa, if you work in television, it's basically like being an actor in America, is that you are an actor, but you actually work as a waitress. In South Africa, you work in television, but you actually work as a garage mechanic because there's not enough work. So I took the lecturing thing, and I absolutely adored it because to be able to give an idea to someone and then to see that person go, I understand, and possibly then take it and make it better or improve upon it is phenomenally rewarding.
So from just teaching, talking one way, it becomes two-way street.
Absolutely, and you learn so much when you're engaging with someone who doesn't have any experience, because they ask questions that you have forgotten to ask, or that you don't even think of asking because you just assume you know the space.
So both a teacher and student learn in that day.
Correct.
Okay. Now you're teaching on YouTube how to be
Yes.
a great game master. So you have a popular YouTube channel, so I imagine you must be a really rich person right now.
No, not exactly.
Oh. Well, this is a shock to everyone.
Right. You know, YouTube, we're at the point now where I have decided to go full-time on the channel. And to give you an indication, my salary has halved, right? I can still survive on it, but I'm not going to be buying a Volvo or an equivalent type of car with that. Again, though, for me, that has never been a motivator.
You're following what you're interested in, what's your dream.
Right. Exactly right.
I have a similar experience. I'm going to have to recommend it to all the viewers here, because following your dream is usually a lot more better than just following the wallet.
Absolutely. Although having said that, I have been homeless twice because of following the dream and ringing up credit cards and then going, okay, I can't pay for rent, so I'm going to move out now. Although I was homeless for about 8 hours the first time before a friend said, oh, well, you can't come and sleep here or stay here or whatever. But I have always maintained you follow what you are passionate about and you stick to it and you can't go wrong. So now, yes, I run a YouTube channel talking about role-playing and storytelling and lecturing at the same time. So it's just bringing everything together that I love and learning from the guys. I mean, I've released so many videos where it's like, this is how it is. And my viewers have said, no, you are wrong. This is how it is. And then I've had to release another video going, I was wrong. This is how it is.
That's a beautiful feeling when you can learn that, okay, I was actually wrong. I learned something. That's a wonderful skill. Yeah. YouTube is pretty much known for the really wide audience videos. We're talking music videos, cat videos, and some cat videos as well.
Yes.
But you have a very specific target audience. So how do you stand out in the middle of all the cats and musicians?
Right, absolutely. I've never had a cat on the show. I have had a fox.
Oh, that's what I love foxes. Okay, you're my hero from now on.
Well, he was a furry.
Well,
but that's close
enough. Yeah, close enough.
Right,
I mean,
right,
we're not.
He thought he was a fox. So yes, I think that what differentiated it, and the role-playing YouTube creators. We actually have a Facebook group, obviously, where we all get together and we compare and we talk, and because YouTube is not competitive. Mm-hmm. I can have the same viewers that you have. Both of us will earn money from them watching our videos. So there's no sense of sort of malevolent competition. I'm not trying to steal viewers away from you. So there's a huge amount of support. And what was so different about the reason why my channel succeeded, a lot of people are very confused because usually it's Americans who do very well in the role-playing space.
Okay.
I'm from South Africa. No one knows me, but my channel worked. And a lot of people have told me it works because they can see that I'm passionate about it. I talk what I know.
So you're not just working there. You're living there.
Right. But I'm also dedicated to actually trying to help people rather than just exploit, oh, I can get money off of YouTube or however it might be.
I get that idea.
And I think also that, the other thing is you will not find a single video on my channel of how to make the best fighter.
Okay.
You will find videos of how to make an interesting fighter from a story perspective. Whatever your stats are, I don't care. And that's not important to me.
Putting like ideas, but you don't, you let the viewers also think for themselves. I'm
absolutely,
right.
Correct.
Okay. There is one more question about on YouTube. You have to balance on how much of yourself is there and how much is there the theme, the title, How to Be a Great GM.
Right.
And how much of yourself, your heart, can you put in there and how much is too much?
Well, it's a good question. We were now releasing 5 videos a week, and by December I will be on 7 different shows. I have gone full time, so there is a lot of me in the shows. There is also, I don't want to say there's a lot held back, but there's certain components which, and it's the cynical, cold corporate side, unfortunately, that is held back. And I released a video on my other channel.
Yes.
On how to play a female character if you're a male. And that video on its own has been the most contentious video.
I would imagine.
It caused other creators to create videos about my video and to discuss how bad or how wrong or how backwards I was. And it polarized the viewership. It got me more female viewers because they heard about this horrendous man who knew nothing about women whatsoever. They came to the channel and went, no, actually he does. But a whole bunch of people came to the channel and said, no, he knows nothing. So as an example, the president of the New Zealand Gaming Association, a gentleman, wrote and said, we don't ever want your kind of scum to come and role play in New Zealand, ever. Because you are
I think we've heard all those words.
Right,
yeah.
right. Only to be followed up by the LGBTI Association of New Zealand saying, we don't need a man to defend us as women. You're welcome to come and role play in New Zealand. Okay. So what it did, though, for me, was that it opened everyone's eyes to saying, you have to tell your story how you want to tell it. And there are going to be people who disagree with you, and there are going to be people who agree with you. But as long as you believe it, as long as you feel that it is your story, make it your own.
That's you need to be a little bit brave on making these stories online, but it sounds like it built something, this one.
Yes, absolutely. And if that's all that I can achieve, is that I can get people to sit back and go, do I agree or do I disagree? I disagree. Or
if you
I
can get
disagree,
people to think,
fine.
that's amazing. I think that's a great note to end this one. But I do have one final question.
Right.
Now, as you know, the theme of Tracon this year is horror. And I would like to ask you to share some horror with us. I'm not going to give any more tips. Is it a story? Is it something else? Is it a tip for storytelling? Something? Guy Sclanders, give us horror.
Wow, okay. Horror. Let me think. Horror is, or horror from my perspective, was realizing that my YouTube channel was growing and realizing that if I stopped, I would let myself down. If I carried on, I would have to sacrifice everything.
Tough choice.
Yes, I ended up sacrificing everything.
No regrets?
No. Thankfully, but that's not the horror side.
Oh.
That wasn't the horror side. Because it's a happy story. But the horror is every time I look at the YouTube analytics and I see numbers going down, I'm seeing my career going down. I'm also seeing that people are not interested in what I was talking about. And that means that, am I losing touch with the role-playing space? And that, for me, is the most horrific thing. If I'm losing touch with my community...
The thing so important to you.
The thing that's so important to me, am I becoming one of those old people who doesn't understand the modern role-playing space? And in my day, we did it this way. That, for me, is the most horrific thing, because I absolutely love this hobby that we're in. I've dedicated my life to it now. And so to see numbers going down is to see me becoming out of touch. And that, for me, is my greatest horror.
I can understand that. Well, scary thoughts for the night.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna end that on a scary note. And thank you very much for being on the stream. Guy Sclanders, I hope you have a fun con, a little bit scary too, I hope. We'll see how it goes. We can probably follow your updates on social media for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.